This is episode 60 of the After Gambling podcast. And in this episode, we're going to cover the 7 stages of grief. Hey there, and welcome to the After Gambling podcast. My name is Jamie. I'm a former problem gambler, and I'm also the host of this show, and I haven't gambled in over 9.5 years. For today's episode, I wanted to share a framework that's really helped me just to identify some things and some themes in my life. And I'm very observant. I tend to pride myself on being curious and observant and looking for patterns and recognizing patterns. And this is one that I didn't have a framework for, but once I saw this, it was eye-opening. And it just really started to put everything into perspective and allowed me to kind of better understand some of the things I was going through and that I see other people going through. And so I thought, what better way to carry that message forward than to just share it on an episode? And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the stages of grief. Now, some of you may be familiar or heard about the stages of grief, 5 stages of grief, or 7 stages of grief, or how many ever stages of grief you've heard of. And if you have, awesome. Hopefully share some more insight as it relates to gambling on this one. But if you don't, so kind of a background on where the stages of grief came from. And I'm taking a lot of this from Healthline. So healthline.com, I'll link this up in the show notes if you want to go check that out yourself. But from Healthline, it says in 1969, a Swiss-American psychiatrist named Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote in her book On Death and Dying that grief could be divided into 5 stages. And her observations came from years of working with terminal ill individuals. Her theory of grief became known as the Kubler-Ross model. And while it was originally devised for people who were ill, these stages of grief have been adapted for other experiences with loss too. And so I think that's where we'll jump off and start to touch on, grief is something that we all go through. This is a universal benefit to being human, I suppose. It's one of those things that you wish you never had to go through, but part of the human experience is to experience struggle, to experience pain, and to experience grief that comes with it. So what Kubler-Ross started to identify were these 5 stages that she just kept seeing over and over. And again, it was pattern recognition, right? And she identified these stages of grief as being denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and then acceptance. Now for today, we're going to go to the updated one, the 7 stages of grief, because I think it gives a little bit more insight. I think it's a little bit more developed. And as Kubler-Ross has mentioned, these were things that she noticed, and it was written based on terminally ill patients. So it was a very unique demographic, specific person that she observed them and wrote them about. But she even said, she never meant it for it to be like this framework, this linear framework from start to finish. So let's get that out of the way first, which is these stages of grief, they don't go in this perfect linear pattern. So if you feel like you're jumping around from time to time, that's normal. I do the same thing. I jump from stage to stage depending on the day or circumstance. So that's something that I should definitely keep in mind and understand that as we go through these, it's not okay, I'm done with that stage, check it off the list and move on to the next. So let's jump into the stages. And with each one, I'm going to read sort of the little brief description from Healthline, and then we'll dive into it. So the first one is shock and denial. So again, this is the updated one, shock and denial, number 1. And it says, this is a state of disbelief and numb feelings. Disbelief, numb feelings. Man, if you are anything like me, this one hits home. The shock and denial and that whole disbelief and numb feelings, that was my entire existence as a gambler. The numbing effect of the gambling, of the addiction, just to where I just didn't feel anything at times. And that shock and denial, and I think it is our body's just trying to protect ourselves from ourselves. But man, numb feelings, that one especially just kind of rings true. So that's the first stage. The second stage is pain and guilt. And it says on Healthline, you may feel that the loss is unbearable and that you're making other people's lives harder because of your feelings and needs. Again, this just sums everything up, right? First you have that state of shock and disbelief, and then the pain and the guilt that follows and quickly follows after. It's like once that numbness starts to wear off. And I think as I was going and gambling, I would go a lot of ways just to experience more numbness, more escape, because the pain and guilt was adding up. And the only way I could do that was to deny that it exists and just keep going back and going back for more. But pain and guilt is definitely one that I definitely relate to. So yeah, that one, again, hits home. The third one in the updated 7 stages of grief is anger and bargaining. That says you may lash out, telling God or a higher power that you'll do anything they ask if they'll only grant you relief from those feelings. Been there, done that, have the t-shirt. Getting mad at things that weren't even relevant to my gambling, right? I mean, be mad at everybody and everything, all because of my actions. And at the same time, I mean, all the bargaining. I mean, bargaining with people to try and get more money. Hey, I'll change this time. I promise I won't do it again. Obviously, people reach out to a higher power or to other people in their lives and make these big promises, these big bargains, with a hope that this will be the end. But we stay in this cycle. And that's the one thing that I want to touch on is for these, the first couple, it definitely is the cycle, right? Of gambling and addiction in general. That's like I say, it's not linear. We just kind of keep going around in this pattern. And then the next one in the 7 stages of grief, the fourth one is depression. And Healthline says this may be a period of isolation and loneliness during which you process and reflect on the loss. And I know for me, the depression obviously set in, and it was kind of, I mean, that period of isolation and loneliness, like, all right, you go through that shock and denial. Okay, all the money's gone again. I did it again. Then you have the pain and the guilt. And then for me, I mean, the depression was kind of like, as that numbness wore off, that's where that depression came in. And as I said, then you go back for more numbness and end up in a shock and denial once again. And that's like I say, the cycle of gambling is really focused on just keeping us in this cycle, these 4 stages of grief. Shock and denial, pain and guilt, anger and bargaining, and then depression. And it just keeps on going. And it seems like each time that I went around this cycle, then I needed more and more. I needed more numbness. And then the pain and the guilt increased. And the bargaining increased. And the depression increased. So these stages, again, these 4, I'm sure you'll start to see these in your own life and see how they definitely played into your gambling. But I think, again, the thing that's really helped me with all this is it puts a framework or a language around it. And I always enjoy doing that or appreciate, and it helps when I can put language or a framework into something to say, okay, hey, that's what that is. I can call it out. Hey, me, when I went back, I went back to numb those feelings because I was feeling depressed. Because I think once we can identify them, now we can start to name them. And once we have that, I think the next step is obviously to do something about it. To say, okay, now we see what's going on here. I like to compare it to anything. Once you see a magic trick and how it's performed, all of a sudden it loses its luster because you're like, oh, I know exactly how that works. And all of a sudden you're looking at the things that the magician's trying to get you to look away from. And all of a sudden you're not confused by it. You're not surprised by it because you already know those things. You can name them. You can see them. You're looking for them. That's why education is so important for me when it comes to gambling, is to educate people on even these things, the stages of grief, to identify them and how the games work. Because once you see it, you can't unsee it. So as I said, these 4, I kind of consider them kind of the cycle, the repeating cycle, the kind of the hamster wheel of addiction. Then the last 3, we start to break out of that. And these are the places where I think especially, okay, the first 4 kind of highlight, okay, that's what we were like when we were in active addiction. But then once we stop, there's some other stages I think that are really important. And like I say, this one, when we get to the one I'll talk about in more depth, but the next one in the 7 stages is the upward turn. And Healthline points to this and they say, at this point, the stages of grief like anger and pain have died down and you're left in a more calm and relaxed state. Now, I think this upward turn, it really only comes when we start to take some action to match up our actions with our intentions when it comes to quitting. And so these are things like coming clean to friends and family, going to GA meetings, even just posting anonymously on the Reddit group. We start to do things and change habits that get us outside of that hamster wheel, right? and we start to see this upward turn. Things start to get a little bit better. They're not perfect, but this is kind of, I do think, while these aren't linear, and you can jump to any of these at any point. And that's one thing that I definitely want to point out is you don't have to go from one to the next. At any point, we can choose and have our free will and our choice to say, okay, I see what it is. I'm going to go to this stage and to start working towards that and doing the things that get us to that stage. But this upward turn is that one, that first one. So those are those early actions of recovery. And then the sixth one in the 7 stages of grief, Healthline points to, is reconstruction and working through. It says you can begin to put pieces of your life back together and carry forward. Now I think this is, when I look back at my time since I stopped gambling, I think this really, in a lot of ways took me a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years to get to. Because that upward turn, those first few steps were really tough. And I would fall back into depression. And I'd fall back into pain and guilt. And I kept going back sort of into those things. I didn't go so far back that it brought me back into my addiction. But I still felt those stages, and I kept kind of going around that. And it was maybe we have to unwind. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here, but maybe that's part of it, is to kind of go through them the opposite direction to unwind. But that reconstruction and working through, putting my life back together, it took time. And that's, I guess, what I want to emphasize, is none of this happened overnight. It's now 10 years. As I've said before, my goal here is to help you speed up that process, to expose you to some of these things maybe a little bit faster that I didn't have on day one. It's like the Alan Carr book. If you haven't read the Alan Carr's Easy Way to Stop Gambling, when you're done with this, if you want to go to the aftergambling.com/support and click on the link there. That gets a small little piece of the purchase to support this podcast. But go read that book. There's no reason not to. It's one of those things that it was so big. I didn't read that until 8 years in, and it's been monumental. And it's completely helped kind of erase those last little shreds of thought of gambling in my mind. But again, it's all these things that help me put the pieces of my life back together, because that helped me move past a lot of the depression and the bargaining and the pain and guilt and the shock and denial. So continuing on, this reconstruction working through, it makes sense, right? It's going to take time to put our life back together and to carry forward. But this is a stage. And again, the other thing that I think is important with these stages, and while I said it wasn't linear, I think when we see these, we can start to say, okay, hey, you know what? I did that upward turn. Now I'm moving towards this reconstruction and working through. And I think one of the benefits is that you start to feel progress. I think it's why we sometimes count days or weeks or years or whatever, is because it helps us, because it allows us to track progress. And so this is just another tool that, because I think days, you can go 10 years without gambling, but if you don't make any changes, if you don't really dig in and find out why, then I think you can see things pop up in other areas. And I'm glad I didn't take that path. I'm glad I've kind of been curious and explored, because I don't want to fear it. And it's just, you got to understand what the underlying root is, I think. Otherwise, it just manifests itself in other ways. So the 7 stages, like I say, it gives another metric, I guess is what I'm trying to say, to track your progress. And then the last of the 7 stages of grief is acceptance and hope. And Healthline says this is a very gradual acceptance of the new way of life and a feeling of possibility in the future. I think this is the one that really kind of hit me. When I started to look at these 7 stages, when somebody brought it up to me, I looked at it, I'm like, you know what? I'm not really depressed anymore. Anger, bargaining, all those first 4 of that cycle. Do I have pieces of it? Yeah. But they're like small tastes, and it's in and then quickly out. Like I say, not so much that I'm kind of in that cycle and spinning around that circle, that hamster wheel again. But for me, once I started doing this podcast, in a lot of ways, it was that acceptance that, hey, this is what it is. I can put it out there. I don't need to be ashamed of it. I don't need to be embarrassed. It was a past. It's something that's over. It's something that I've accepted. And by accepting it, now I have hope. I have a new way of life. I have new levels of accountability. All these things. And like I say, it really kind of summed up some of the changes that I was feeling in myself, because it was a little bit weird. I mean, I wasn't angry at the industry anymore. I think the industry should do so many more things, and I think they can and will in the future. And some of my other projects, obviously, I'm going to lean on them to do so. But I separated those emotions, the stages of grief. I wasn't going to that anger anymore. And in a way, at first, it didn't make any sense. It's like, all right, you were so mad. I mean, when I started this, it was gambling still sucks, which, as I've always said, that was my personal reminder that gambling was not good for me. It wasn't that nobody should gamble. But obviously, I was angry and upset and all those different things with casinos and processes that they still do, like reversal withdrawals. You shouldn't be able to reverse a withdrawal. There's no reason that it needs to happen. But I got to the point now where I just accept it. And the other thing that I accept is just full responsibility of choice in my life again. And this has been something that's been extremely empowering. I talked about it before where, I think about it at times and it's like, hey, I could go play poker. Nobody's watching me. Nobody would know, that type of stuff. I could do it and probably not get caught. But I remind myself that now I choose not to. And I have that choice because I've accepted that just doesn't do me any good. And it's provided me with such a different outlook on the future. And that's really what I hope for all of you listening. I mean, if you are a former problem gambler and you're listening to this, I mean, the whole thing with this After Gambling, this whole season is all about trying to inspire a future that's even bigger and brighter than you ever thought it would be from gambling, because that's what I've found to be true in my life. So, like I say, use these stages of grief, and I think it's a good thing for reflection, right? Is to see how far you've come. Because as you get further and further away, and like I say, the depression is one that, I think because I was so numbed, that numbing feeling there's such a hangover to that. And it took a while to really kind of get to a point where I started to feel that depression again. So I was just in denial, and just, shock and denial. That was it for probably a year or two. But like I say, putting this framework, hopefully it's as effective and useful for you as it was for me. And allows you, again, like I say, another way to track progress. And I think this is especially important to me because I see people with day counters and they're awesome. And it's always interesting when somebody has a long run, but then maybe they have like one bad day, one afternoon where everything just becomes too much and they decide and make the choice to gamble again. But then they quickly realize, hey, you know what? I don't want this, and catch themselves and get right back on track and start doing the things they need to and fixing that kind of barrier so they can't do that again. And for those people, I think days are just one way to count and track progress. And I think the 7 stages offers a whole nother framework that we can use to start to evaluate how far we've come and to kind of track and to understand and also set goals to kind of move through to get to these different places to where all of a sudden gambling isn't still having this grip on us because we're still upset and we're still trying to bargain with it. But we actually get to this point where we're free from the entire process and have that freedom of choice and that possibility for a future that is as bright as we want it to be, all because of our own doing and on our own accord. So that's what I hope you take away from this. It's been awesome for me. Like I said, I'll link up the link to Healthline so you can kind of jump into that. Feel free to check out some other things. And then finally, as I said, we're going to have some different things, some book suggestions. The one book suggestion I'm going to throw out for today that kind of matches up with this 7 Stages of Grief is Mark Manson's Everything is Fucked, a book about hope. You know, I've probably talked about Mark's other book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Both awesome books. Great books. Mark's a great author. And the thing that I really love about his latest book is that he really makes a case for the fact that we choose our outlook on life. We choose how we perceive everything. I mean, everything that happens, sure, there are things that can influence us. But at the end of the day, our view of where we are in life and how that makes us feel is all in our own control. So as you go through these 7 stages of grief, That's why I tied this book in, because I really think it'd be powerful for you to read that alongside these 7 stages of grief and say, you know what? Hey, maybe today I am angry, but you know what? It's my choice to be angry and to look at this through an angry lens. And I can also make that choice to just change and not look at it through an angry lens, because we do have complete control over how we interpret the events in our life. So check out Mark's book. Like I say, he's an awesome author. Check out his blog. Follow him. I think I am Mark Manson on Twitter. I'll link all those things up. But check out Mark. Like I say, if you want to go to aftergambling.com/support, I'll put the link there where you can pick up the book. Small little piece will come to the podcast, which is kind of cool. If you're going to buy it anyway, it doesn't cost you anything else. But don't feel you have to buy it. Go check it out at the library. Wherever you can get books. I read most of my books from the library for free, because why pay for a book if the library is right there to help you? So check that out. That's going to be it for today. Remember, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a therapist. I'm not any of those people with letters before or after my name. So please, please, please seek out professional help. This information is just for informational purposes, and you need to seek out professional advice for your own circumstance and your own situation. It's worth it. You deserve it. And like I've said before, there's so much free treatment available through different states and different government entities. So seek those out and get the help you need. Because it's very important. It's something I wish I would have done early on. That's going to be it for today, and I will see you in the next episode.